Okay, streaming once again. So this is going to be take two, and I'm absolutely going to delete that first video. I'm using OBS, and OBS is a little funky sometimes. I don't know why. So the first time I ran this through, for anyone watching this after the fact, there was no audio on the microphone. Now I'm getting the audio bars, so hopefully it sounds wonderful, and you guys can hear my beautiful voice on this Friday afternoon. So let's start over from scratch, take two. Welcome to Crosstalk Solutions. My name's Chris, and I hope you guys are able to join me for this Q&A live stream. I'm going to be going through some questions from YouTube comments as well as questions of your own. If you have any, certainly feel free to ask away in the chat. And if you guys want to be notified about when these live streams are going to be happening, I typically tweet out about 30 to 60 minutes ahead of time whenever I'm going to do a live stream, and you can follow me on Twitter at CrosstalkSol, S-O-L. So Crosstalk S-O-L, like Crosstalk Solutions minus the oceans. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into some of these questions. Let me shift over to this view right here. Okay. Question number one comes from No Logics. And this is from the Fractal Design Node 804 video that I put out earlier today. Will you host any VMware boxes off of this unit? So that's a really great question, and to answer it, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I assume that I will use the box for some VMware storage of like the actual virtual machines, but whether or not I'm going to be running them, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm going to be using it for SMB file storage. I'm going to be using it for Plex, and then beyond that, it's kind of just an experiment, and I want to play around with FreeNAS and just figure out all that it can do, and I will certainly try to run VMware off of it, and hopefully it works great. I don't actually use virtual machines all that often. I'm lucky enough to have enough sort of spare servers lying around that I usually just build physical servers for things. But that is a very good idea. And I will look into that after I get everything else up and running. Okay, next question. Oh, this isn't a question. This was just kind of funny. Can I zoom this in? Let's see. How do I zoom? There we go. Okay, so this came in today. By the way, if you're on YouTube, this is the kind of crap you have to deal with, and so you better have a thick skin about it. Dude, nobody wants to see your face on your vid. So I got a kick out of that, and let me tell you something, pro gamer. My 3.3% female audience loves seeing my face on the videos, so take that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Okay, so next question from C. Cooper, and this comes from my UniFi Enterprise Networking video, where I did a USG Pro, and then that fanned out to 3 separate fiber switches, and then those each fanned out to multiple 48-port UniFi switches. And so C. Cooper asks the question, why did you use 3 fiber switches? I would have gone with 1 fiber switch and fiber linked it at 10 gigabit to all 6 48-port switches. So that is a very good point. And basically what it boils down to is that everything was already the fiber cables were already pre-laid out. And had I done it the way that you, so home running to a single fiber switch would have actually been the way that I would have preferred to do that deployment. But they planned it out the way they planned it out before they brought me in. So I had to work with what I was given, and with what I was given, it worked best to fan out to the 3 separate fiber switches. They would have had to pull the fiber guys back to rerun some lines if I didn't do it the way that I did it. So that is why I did that. Okay. So, again, and just like anything in IT, though, guys, there's a million ways to do the same things, right? So you can get a lot of stuff accomplished differently by doing it different ways, and there's no real right or wrong way to do anything as long as it's working, right? Certainly cost is a factor, and time it takes to implement, and overhead of the IT administrative burden is a factor. So taking everything into consideration, as long as you find a solution that works well with the constraints that you're given, there's really not a wrong answer. Okay, so question online. Any chance, let's do a different view here. Any chance on an IoT video talking about setting up firewall rules and how to isolate, say, your smart home from your IP cams? So, really good question. Internet of Things is, yeah, I know there's definitely a wrong way. I'm saying as long as it works and you're in the right, you're within the constraints, then there's a lot of ways to do the same thing within those given constraints. Okay, so IoT. Yeah, it's an interesting topic because the problem with segmenting out IoT is that you potentially lose functionality. So a really good example is my Philips Hue. Right, so I've got Philips Hue here, and this is a device that plugs into the network, and then when I'm on my LAN Wi-Fi, I can use my smartphone to then control my Philips Hue lighting. Okay? Hang on a second, I hit a button wrong. Okay, so however, in that example, if I took my Philips Hue and I moved it into its own network, the problem with doing that is that now on my regular non-IoT network, my phone connected to Wi-Fi won't be able to see this device, right? And this is not the same with all IoT, but it's certainly the same for some IoT. So the problem is really accessibility. Right, so being able to access those devices. Now, some devices have like a configuration where when you're configuring them on the phone, they're going out to some sort of cloud-hosted server or something, and then that cloud-hosted server, is also connected to your IoT from whatever network it's in the world. So that's one way around that. But for some devices, it's just not realistic to have IoT segmented into its own network because you lose access to that network. Okay, so another one, I would be interested in a video about an IoT isolated network while allowing another VLAN to reach in the network to control the devices. So again, that's the problem, right? The problem is that a lot of these devices didn't take into account that you're going to have a separate IoT network, and so therefore the control from your iPhone or whatever smart device is only searching on the local LAN. And it's hard to get, everything into a segregated IoT network. Okay, so let's see. Does it concern you that someone might hack into your Amazon UniFi controller and have full access to all your clients' networks? No. So in my UniFi controller, I have it locked down to at least the administrative side of it, 8443 and whatnot. I have locked down to my WAN IP address and the WAN IP addresses of my the folks that help administer that server for me. So I'm not too concerned about it. Of course, security and hacking is always a concern, and two-factor authentication is a good thing to turn on wherever. Yeah, as far as my Amazon is concerned, I'm not that concerned about it. It is firewalled and locked down. Greetings from the Netherlands. Free PBX TLS, an interesting subject for a video. Yes and no. Here's the problem. So I do videos on things that I have experience with in my day-to-day job, right? So when I'm a consultant and I'm working with customers and, I set up a free PBX for them, I do things a specific way based on customer need. I have never once in my career ever had someone ask me or have an actual real need for TLS. Okay, so I've never set it up for a customer, right? So it might make for an interesting video, but no one actually uses it. So there you go. And it's a very difficult subject to cover because TLS, you could do TLS from the endpoint to the free PBX is one thing. That's easy, right? But TLS from the free PBX out to a SIP provider is a whole different story because every SIP provider might not allow for TLS or they might implement it a little bit differently. So it's very difficult to make a video on a subject like that. Okay, let's go on to another question here. A little off topic, but could you someday do a video on what Bell intercom/broadcast you would recommend? And yeah, I might do that. If I run across a job, hang on a second, let me switch back to my other view. If I run across a job where we're doing a bell system, I will absolutely do a video on that. What I typically would use depends on customer, what functionality they need and what budget they have, of course, but in sort of the mid-range, I really like the cyber data equipment, and cyber data equipment has come a long way in terms of being able to do bell scheduling and pre-recorded scheduled messages and things like that. So I do like cyber data stuff a lot, although it is more pricey than some other solutions. Some less or some more cost-effective solutions would be like Valcom equipment. So Valcom equipment works well. It's a little bit convoluted how to set up Valcom equipment. Like you kind of have to know exactly what you're doing to get all the pieces to work together correctly. But yeah, Valcom and cyber data are typically what I would start with. That would be my go-to, and then go on from there. Okay, back to Vespanol in the Netherlands. Do you think FreePBX is safe out of the box? Can people listen into calls? Well, I mean, here's the thing. Would you be able to do it? That's really the question, right? Would you know how to get into someone's FreePBX and listen to calls? Okay, so like anything, FreePBX is a piece of hardware in your network that needs to be secured. Okay, so the way that I ensure that FreePBX is secure is I don't open firewall ports to it, right? So if you don't have any access to the server itself, you can't get in to hack it. You'd have to have some other way in through like a VPN or a backdoor or something else. You'd have to be into that customer's network already in order to hack the FreePBX and listen in on calls if the FreePBX isn't open to the outside world at all, which is how I like to implement it, right? So there you go. And let's put it this way. If someone comes in and they are able to log into your network in order to listen into calls on your FreePBX, you've probably got a way bigger problem than listening in on calls on the FreePBX. They'd have access to a lot more stuff on your network at that point. So it doesn't really matter. But that's basically it. Don't open FreePBX to the outside world. If you do have to open FreePBX ports to the outside world, for instance, if you have someone at home that needs to connect and they don't have the ability to do VPN or something like that, then you need to be able to lock FreePBX down to that person's WAN IP address, or in the case of FreePBX, you can lock it down to like a dynamic DNS name, so that only specific IPs or specific FQDNs can actually connect into the FreePBX from the outside world. Hopefully that answers your question. But basically, bottom line is, even when I'm doing a hosted FreePBX that's on a hosted server on the internet, I always make sure that we're locked down to WAN IP address. I only open up ports to the ports that need to be open, and I never, never, never put FreePBX wide to the whole wide internet, or open to the whole wide internet. That's just asking for trouble. We did a test a long time ago when I was a sales engineer for a voice over IP company. We took basically a DMZ zone off the firewall, and we took an asterisk-based PBX system, we put it in there, and we just opened up ports 5060, and we were watching the server for, intrusion detection and seeing who was trying to hit the server. And there were SIP hacking attempts attempting to hit that server within 2 minutes of putting it online. Okay, so that's how prevalent SIP attacks are. There are constantly people scanning every subnet on the internet for vulnerabilities in systems, including phone systems. So don't open your phone systems to the internet. Bottom line, that's it. Okay, let's see. Next topic here. Next question. Okay. This comes from Raphael Lamb on my How to Steal Your Neighbor's Wi-Fi video. I get a lot of interesting comments on this video. I think it was kind of a clickbaity title, and a lot of people still click on it to this day. So Raphael writes, what is the range of this NanoStation Loco M5? Let's say I'm using a single NanoStation to connect to my neighbor's TP-Link router that is about 100 meters away. Will I get a strong signal? Because I've seen that many people use a NanoStation in a pair rather than a single one, so I'd like to know the range of a single NanoStation while connecting to other normal Wi-Fi routers such as TP-Link. So the problem here is most likely the TP-Link. So the TP-Link, however far away it is, likely isn't going to have a strong enough antenna to get to the nanostation. The nanostation does have a strong antenna. It's directional. I forget the degrees on the nanostation. I think it's like 20 degrees or something. But it's made to go point to point over very long distances, right? It's not made to be a repeater. So that directional signal may pick up the TP-Link, but the TP-Link may be too far away to send to the nanostation, all right? So if you have two nanostations pointed at each other, they're made to go very long distances. But if you have one nanostation functioning as a repeater and then a TP-Link somewhere further away, the TP-Link might not be able to see the nanostation. I hope that makes sense. But that's kind of how I would approach it, or how I would look at that. Okay, so let's go on to another question here. Oh, fan from India, love your channel. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Dominic Richardson again. How would you lock down your IP cams so they can only see and write to your NAS? Well, typically, I would have the IP cameras in the same LAN as the NVR. Okay, so maybe not necessarily the same LAN as a NAS, or where I would have a NAS, but I would have the NVR and the cameras in the same LAN. Typically, all right? If they're not in the same LAN, then you have to manually tell the cameras, hey, you got to go over to this specific IP address or FQDN, and you have to have the appropriate ports open for that communication to take place. Okay, another question. Here we go. Bartosz Slawinski. Bartosz Slawinski. Okay. As I see your free PBX is acting like DHCP server for your phones, but what about when you have your router DHCP in this network? As we know, there cannot be two DHCP servers in one network. Is there any way to configure your router DHCP to send PBX IP addresses to your phones when they acquire IP? So yeah, I think you misunderstood in this video. Let's put it this way. I never use the free PBX's DHCP. Okay, it is a Linux box. So it can be a DHCP server. If you set it up to do that, there's no problem there. You could make it a DHCP server, but it's not a DHCP server by default. And I personally never run FreePBX as the DHCP. I like to have DHCP run off of either the router, right? So something like an edge router that can do both DHCP and option 66, or I like to run it off of something like Windows if I'm working with a customer that has an Active Directory domain environment. So yeah, I mean, basically that's all there is to it. As long as there's a strong DHCP server that can do both DHCP as well as option 66, then I'm fine with whatever DHCP server in the network. The only time I would use the free PBX as DHCP is if the customer for some reason didn't have another DHCP server and their router didn't have that ability, which most routers do, although some of the smaller Soho routers will be able to do DHCP, but they won't be able to do option 66. And option 66 is typically what you need to connect phones locally to the free PBX. Now, all of that being said, what I've been doing most lately for my customers is I set up the Sangoma redirect portal. Okay, so the Sangoma redirect portal is pretty awesome. Let me get into a different view here. So Sangoma's redirect works very, very well. And what happens is you get a Sangoma phone, any Sangoma phone, okay, you plug it into your network, okay? This phone is pre-configured. You can go in and pre-configure it in the Sangoma portal, portal.sangoma.com or whatever, where you add this phone's MAC address, right? There's a MAC address on every phone. You add the phone's MAC address into the portal, and you tell it, go get your configurations from wherever, FQDN, LAN IP address, WAN IP address on port 83. Port 83 is the HTTP provisioning port for free PBX. So now, when this phone plugs in, no matter where it is in the world, it goes and it says, hey, where am I supposed to go? It authenticates with Sangoma's redirect portal. Each of these phones from Sangoma has a unique SSL cert or some sort of secure certificate unique to this phone's MAC address. So this phone comes online, it reaches out to Sangoma, it says, hey, here I am, please authenticate me. Sangoma says, great, here you go, you're authenticated. And then the phone says, awesome, where am I supposed to go? And the Sangoma portal says, oh, you need to go to 192.168.0.10 port 83. Or you need to go to pbx@company.com port 83, right? And so then as long as port 83 communication is open from where this phone is plugged in, it then goes straight to the free PBX on HTTP and downloads all of its configurations. It's a really, really nice, simple way to do it, and it affords me the ability to, for instance, if someone buys a hosted server from me, I have the phones drop shipped directly to the customer, but the MAC addresses come to me from my distributor, right? So I know all the MAC addresses, I enter all the MAC addresses into the Sangoma portal, and I get everything set up to the point where as soon as they plug the phone in, no matter where they are, it automatically connects to their free PBX server. Okay, so hopefully all that makes sense, but it's a really nice, elegant way to get the phones connected. Okay, let's see. Next we have... Oh, I thought this was just a really good comment. Neil Metcalf on my 15-minute UniFi controller setup. Neil says, one thing I've found through experimentation, if you install UniFi on a headless VPS such as DigitalOcean or AWS, you could experience a long UniFi startup time, which if you guys watch that video, you'll see that I do. When you first, I even put some sort of caveat in the video about that, when you first start the UniFi service, it takes up to 2 minutes for the port 8443 administration GUI to actually appear and be usable. Okay, so it's because a VPS doesn't experience enough entropy during its startup, and it halts the generation of the SSL TLS keys. Thus, the interface on 8443 doesn't load. If you do sudo apt-get install havged, or havged, I guess that's how you say it, long startup times vanish, and the UniFi loads almost instantly. Havged allows generating randomness based on variations in code execution time on a processor. Quite a nice package to install, especially for the $5 DigitalOcean tier with only 512 megs of RAM and 1 CPU. So, let me go back to this comment so you guys can actually see it. That's really interesting to me. So I've never heard of this package, but if that is the reason, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to test that out, and thank you, Neil, for sharing that, and thank you for providing your feedback. Brandon is on. Hey Brandon, how's it going? Brandon, of course, is Crosstalk's WISP guy, and we were doing a really interesting project just recently on trying to integrate nanostations via solar. Very cool stuff. If you guys stay tuned for videos on that, we're going to do some solar nanostation type videos. Oh, Willie's here too. By default, UniFi is set up to use 1 gig of memory. You're absolutely right. Well, I don't know what it is set up to use, but when I set up a DigitalOcean server for UniFi, like I did in that 15-minute DigitalOcean video, I use the $10 tier, which is 1 gigabyte of RAM and a 30 gig drive space, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so I'm out of questions to answer. If you guys have questions to ask, go ahead and put those in the comments. In the meantime, we're just going to BS around a little bit, it looks like. Willie's in the house, so Willie is taking some time off of his busy schedule to join us. Willie, I hope you're not sloughing off at work. Let me switch over to my chat view. Trying to make this fit in the window better. There we go. Okay. Okay, Cho asks, can you give guests on a client-isolated guest VLAN on Wi-Fi access to Plex? How can this be done? So certainly you can. The way that I would do that is, of course, you have to know what ports are necessary to access Plex, and then you have to. What I would probably do is set up a DNS name, so Plex at plex.domain.com, and then on the LAN where those guests are, just have them connect to Plex on that FQDN, so that they're getting the internal IP address of the other VLAN. And then, of course, if the ports are open, they should have pretty clear communication to that server. Running my mail server and UniFi controller on a 99-cent per month 512 meg VPS in Russia somewhere. in Russia. Okay, so Adam says Plex is port 32400. Thank you for that. For around $100, USG or Edge router. Yeah, the Edge router I think is like $91 now, if I'm not mistaken. USG is right around 100. It might be like 109 or something. I'm not sure. Okay. How's the connection, by the way, guys? I know Willie was just saying that his YouTube feed keeps dropping. I don't know if that's Willie's issue or my issue. Hey, Willie. Okay, so Kevin writes, little question. I've got IPTV at home and would like to disable its port to the kids' TV at a certain time. Can this be done in UniFi? Can you do scheduling in UniFi? I'm pretty sure you can do the scheduling in Edge router. I don't recall if the scheduling of port access has made it to UniFi yet. Willie's on here, though. He knows that stuff better than I do. He could probably tell you. Thoughts on the upcoming Ubiquiti application server? You know, I haven't looked into it too much, but the price is like $1,000. And I personally probably wouldn't be able to justify purchasing one for $1,000, even for a client. I don't know. Tell me what the UniFi application server does that warrants a $1,000 price tag, and then we can have a, we can have a better conversation about it, I guess. Okay, and it's interesting. So the live stream, people are saying they have to refresh every so often. They've got 150 meg fiber, so it's not on their end. Willie's having trouble. Perfect streaming in South Africa. That's good. So the only thing, an interesting thing, and it's always funny when you make changes to your home network. It's one of those things like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But being that I'm a network and computer guy, I'm making changes all the time. So I had a really weird problem that happened when I upgraded my video card. I had a GeForce GTX 960, and it wasn't giving me the gaming performance that I wanted. And so I upgraded it to a GeForce GTX 1080. Okay, not the Ti, just a regular 1080. And when I put that card into my server, into my computer, my computer wouldn't boot anymore. So I went into the BIOS, and the SSD that I boot off of was no longer an option as a bootable device in my BIOS. Okay, so I don't know why. I don't know why that happened. I don't know what happened. I looked for firmware updates for my motherboard, and their website was down while I was troubleshooting it, of course. And so now, whenever I reboot my computer, I have to go into the BIOS. It sees the SSD. It's not like it's the problem that it doesn't see the SSD. It does see the SSD. But when I reboot my computer, I have to go into the BIOS and then go into the advanced settings and go down and manually boot off of the SSD. Okay, so luckily I don't reboot my computer that much, so it's not that big a deal. But I am absolutely due for a rebuild, and so I'm hoping that that swap of the card, I have not done a live stream since I swapped that card and started having that problem. I'm just hoping that that is not, what's happening here. Okay, John, how reliable do you find the UniFi equipment? From the forums, only the switches look like a concern. How many years have some of your installations lasted? Okay, so I'll say, first off, I've installed a ton of switches, and I've only ever had one go bad. So yes, the BIOS boot order, it's not that the BIOS boot order got changed, it's that when I go to set the BIOS boot order, my SSD isn't even an option. I have one of my regular hard drives, like a 1 terabyte Western Digital Black that I use for storage. I have that as an option, and I have my DVD player, my CD-ROM DVD player as an option. Those are the only things that show up as options to boot from. Both of my SSDs do not show up. Then if you go down a little bit further in the advanced BIOS, it shows that they show up down there, so it is recognizing those drives, and I can manually boot to them. So again, I don't know what the problem is. I tried to update firmware, but the Asus web page, the support page where I'd be able to download the latest firmware from my motherboard, was offline when I was troubleshooting it, and I haven't gone back to see if they fixed that yet. Try to change the SATA mode from IDE to SATA. What do you think about load balancing on USG? Let me go back 1 second, no problem. Let me go back to John's question. So how reliable do you find the UniFi equipment? From the forums, only the switches look like a concern. How many years have some of your installations lasted? So a long time. I've got a switch here. It's 24 ports. Works great. I have found that a lot of the times that Ubiquiti equipment fails is because it's not on a surge protector or not on a UPS, right? So I've had in the past few months, I've had an edge router go out because of electrical interference, and I've had a cloud key go out because of electrical interference, and I've had a 48-port UniFi switch go out because of electrical interference. Right? All three of those devices that went out in the past, few months, were all electrical based. So I think that the UniFi stuff is pretty solid, except you have to make sure that it's on a good surge protector and it's on a good battery backup, which is kind of like best practice for any computer equipment. Like I've got 2 UPSs sitting right down here, and not just one, I've got 2, right? So I make sure that all my stuff is on UPS, especially out here. I mean, it's a gorgeous day outside today, but I live in the coast of Oregon, so we get our fair share of bad weather out here. And yes, so Brandon just mentioned that database corruption can happen a lot on the NVR when it's powered down improperly. I would say not just the NVRs, but also the cloud keys. I've seen database corruption on the cloud keys when you do not power those down correctly. Okay, so let's go back through some of these questions here. Try to change SATA mode from IDE to SATA. I'll try that. Again, I haven't spent too much time troubleshooting it, but anyways, repair your boot manager. That's also something I possibly should do. Ultimately, it's one of those things where I'll probably just, my goal is I want to get this NAS built, and then when I get the NAS built, I'm going to offload all of my data onto the NAS, most of my data, and that will basically make my computer just a shell of, programs that are running. And I'd like to, at that point, just rebuild my computer from scratch, because I do that about every 2 years, and I'm kind of overdue for a rebuild at this point. Try switching your SSD to a different SATA port. I did try that, and that did not work. UPSs have saved my bacon so many times. Yeah, me too, man. People spend so much money on their computer equipment, and they just plug them into the wall. It just drives me crazy. Did you ever get a chance to retest and find a solution for the issue when using guest Wi-Fi network using a captive portal on a controller on an external VPS? I did not, although there were a lot of great suggestions. So that was a situation where I had to build that for a client. I built it for the client, ended up switching it to the cloud key, shipped it off to the client. The client is now using it in production, and it works great. But did I ever get a chance to go back and retest it? I did not. There were a lot of suggestions that you should whitelist the redirect FQDN. So in that case, that was a Motel 6. And upon successful authentication, it would redirect to the Motel 6 webpage. And so people were saying if I had just whitelisted that webpage as a webpage that's accessible regardless if you're authenticated or not by the guest portal, then it would have sort of bought some time. So the 20-second timeout, takes 10 seconds, and then it would redirect. It would redirect to Motel 6 and then give the cloud key a little bit more time to authenticate before moving forward. So that was the next thing I was going to try. I did not get a chance to try that, though, before I had to ship that off to the customer. Hey, Hugo, how's it going? Welcome. Okay, so let's see. Jose LMG, do you think it is possible to have a second Wi-Fi broadcast with a different SSID with a VLAN with all internet sent through a VPN connection? So yeah. That is possible. In fact, it's a funny story. A long time ago, I used my Edge Router Lite, and I set up that exact same scenario where I created a Wi-Fi network on its own VLAN. I called it like Secure Wi-Fi or something. And then I set up that VLAN so that all traffic going through that VLAN was proxied through private internet access. And I got it up and running, and I got it working, and I was like, awesome, this works. Let me go ahead and make a video about this. I erased all of my changes, and then the second time I went to set it up, it didn't work. So I worked on it, troubleshooting it for probably 2 or 3 hours, and I was never able to get it to work again, and then I moved on, and I never went back to it. So yeah, that would be a wonderful topic for a video, and again, something that I actually attempted to do probably a year and a half ago, and then it worked, and then it didn't work, and then I just never went back to it. So, okay, so let's see. Does UPS protect against power problems? And as Brandon said, yes, it does. That's what it's designed for. So a UPS, you can think of it as a really good, I mean, not only does it have batteries so that if your power goes out, it stays on, but it's also just a really good surge protector because it's conditioning all of your power before it gets to your devices. Okay, so let's see. It'll serve, oh yeah, and Brandon says right there, it'll serve as both a power conditioner, correcting lows and spikes. Okay, perfect, perfect. Hello from Holland. Love your videos. Thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate that. The Cloud Key upgrade from 6.9 to 6.10 has been very interesting, especially that it takes UniFi from 5.5 down to 5.4. Is that right? I don't think I've tried that. My Cloud Key, let's see, I haven't messed with mine in a few weeks, so I haven't seen that change yet. I did try, so Willie, I don't know if Willie's still on the video, but Willie had put out a video not that long ago where he upgraded his Cloud Key to 5.5. Oh, I don't remember the version number, but it was the 5.5 tier of UniFi. When I tried to do the same thing on my Cloud Key, I got a database error and it just wouldn't let me do it. I tried to upgrade. I tried to upgrade manually. I tried a bunch of different settings like repairing the Mongo database and all sorts of stuff, and it just would not let me install the 5.5.19. Thank you, Eric. It would not let me install 5.5.19 on the Cloud Key. I had to actually manually backport to the 5.4 version that I was on. So again, yeah, it's weird. They're going through a little bit of a weird gray area right now where the firmware is not quite stabilized between 5.4 and 5.5. Okay, Sydney. I saw Sydney in there. Hey, welcome, Sydney. Thanks for joining. Let's see, the Cloud Key upgrade. Looking forward to the solar project. I'm looking forward to the solar project too. As a matter of fact, it's nice and sunny outside. Here, I'll show you guys outside my window. Beautiful outside. Look at that. Gorgeous sunny day here in Oregon. So I am going to hopefully get out of my office in a little bit and go outside and do some solar work today, where we're trying to do a number of interesting solar projects that we'll have videos on in the very near future. So thank you guys for staying tuned for that. Okay, Jose again writes, would be great to see a video with Edge and USG routers if possible. Was that going back to, oh, you're going back to your question on the private internet access. Yeah. Again, it's just one of those things that if I have a free afternoon, like I usually try to reserve Fridays for fun projects that I want to work on. So I try to reserve Fridays for not the stuff that I have to work on, but stuff that I want to work on. So that would fall into like a Friday project when I have time to do it. But since it's so nice outside, I'm going to be doing solar projects today. I don't. That sounds more like a winter project when I when I can't get outside. So I will absolutely do that. And certainly, if you guys are not signed up with private internet access, absolutely sign up with private internet access. They're a wonderful product, and I use it on my phone. I use it on my computer. It works very, very well as a secure VPN proxy server to protect everything that you are doing and surfing online from the prying eyes of your ISP. Okay. Looks like we're kind of running out of questions, guys. So there's 51 people watching. I have until noon Pacific time, which is another 17 minutes. So if you guys have more questions, go ahead and pop them in there now. Otherwise, I'm going to call this one early. And I've got a phone call that I've got to make right at noon. I'll just make that call early. So let me know what you guys want to do. Yeah, we're looking forward to the solar projects. They have a Ubiquiti, it's called the Ubiquiti Air Gateway Installer that we're using. I just ordered one for my home office as well, just so that I can play with it here. But if you go to Ubiquiti Products Accessories, click on the Air Gateway, and then click on, and this is the Air Gateway installer. So look at this cool product. Hang on, let me get to my, there we go. So this is the Air Gateway installer. I got to this by products, so ubiquiti.com or ubnt.com, products. Let me go back so you guys can see. Products, accessories, Air Gateway. And then this is what we're using. So you get Air Gateway that can be powered by USB. Okay, so the micro USB, I think it's the USB B connector or something like that. I forget exactly which connector it is. So basically you can take a battery bank and plug it into this Air Gateway and provide PoE power to like a nanostation or a nanobeam or whatever you want. So that's a really cool concept, and we did this same concept, but instead of using the USB to a battery bank, we're using it to an Amazon or a charge controller that we bought off of Amazon that has USB ports on it, right? So the USB plugs in, the solar plugs into the charge controller, which then not only charges the battery, but it also has USB out into this Air Gateway installer, and then from the Air Gateway installer we have that plugged into a nanostation. Okay, so that's pretty sweet. And then if you have enough, if you have a nanostation M5, you can the nanostation M5 then has a PoE pass-through that you could even power a secondary device like a UVC camera. Okay, so Brandon says there's also a new device coming soon. It's in the beta store now called the UInstaller. It's the same function as Air Gateway Installer, but has an integrated battery built into it. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, it's a really good idea. Very, very good idea. Like I said, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on this Air Gateway Installer just to play around with it with the solar stuff. But that sounds like a good one as well. I'd show you guys the beta store, but I don't know if I'm allowed to. So, you know, only certain people have beta access to the beta store. And I mean, a ton of people do, but I don't know what I'm allowed to actually show on YouTube. So I'm going to have to not go into the beta store. Has anyone else had trouble with a UniFi controller forgetting the names you have set for devices? I have not had that trouble. Cho asks, does the USG behave well behind a UTM like pfSense or Untangle? Does that sound too much for a home network? Yeah, it is. In my opinion, it's too much for a home network. I would use pfSense if you need the extra software that comes with pfSense, like the, you know, I don't know, what, intrusion detection or, you know, child safety internet monitoring or whatever packages you can put on pfSense. Just use pfSense. You don't need to also use the USG in that case. Just use your pfSense as the firewall, and you're good. Eric asks, is the Ubiquiti MFi product line dead? Another great question. I did a video on that called Rest in Peace MFi a while back. So in my opinion, yes, it is. And as a matter of fact, I did that video after a statement came out from the CEO of Ubiquiti, Robert Pera. He wrote a big article on it in the Ubiquiti forums about how they're basically kind of killing off that product line. And that was easily a year ago. I don't think there's been any updates to the software, or there certainly haven't been any new MFi devices coming out. So yeah, I would pretty much say that it's dead. The Amplify product is supposedly supposed to be able to integrate with IoT devices of some sort in the future, though they haven't really released a lot of what that's going to entail yet. Is there an option in the UniFi controller to make it discoverable on an L2 network? Is it discoverable on an L2 network? I think, isn't UniFi, I mean, UniFi devices are discoverable at the UniFi controller, but I'm not sure about that. So what you can do, though, is if you're using something like an edge router or a USG, you can set the UniFi controller setting in your DHCP settings, right? And then that way, when DHCP gets handed out to devices, they get whatever option number that is that tells it where the UniFi controller is. Okay, so let's see. Gen 2 AC equipment and the UInstaller is going to make installs so much easier. I agree with you there. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so let's see. Hi, do you know a solution to create custom... Marcus, thank you. Thank you for writing. Do you know a solution to create custom vouchers for a captive Wi-Fi portal from an external, like a cashier terminal? Are there any descriptions for the API? So if you were going to do something complicated like that, I wouldn't use UniFi for that. I would use something like First Spot. Yeah, First Spot by PatronSoft. So I've played with this software before. Let's see, is there a better picture? This is a terrible picture. First Spot, no, home. Boy, their website's terrible. This is kind of no frills, but I have used this First Spot captive portal software, and it's very powerful. So let's see, online demo. Can I get to this without signing in? Oh, we support both Internet Explorer and Firefox. Not Chrome? Okay. But I have set up First Spot as an option for customers in the past, and I was very pleased with the amount of options that you could do in First Spot. And I'm sure you'd have to look at something like this in order to do any sort of API integration to something like a cashier's terminal. Can you share the link for the charge controller you bought from Amazon with a USB cable? Yeah, let me pull that up. Hang on one second. This one. Sorry, I'm getting the link off the page. I don't know if this will let me put links in, but I will put that there. So there's the charge controller, and I'll bring this over here so you guys can actually see it. All power is 20 amp solar charge controller, battery power intelligent regulator, blah, blah, blah. So this has a battery meter, so when it's charging up your battery, it also shows you how much battery power is left in the battery. And then it has these two USB ports on the side for, out to like that that installer thing. Pretty slick little device. Okay, so I'm going to bust through these questions very fast here. Brandon, we got links at the bottom of the video. Okay, yes, thank you. MFi is deader than dead. My Ubiquity insiders told me that Robert basically rage-fired the team for sucking, which is kind of the gist of what I got from his announcement about it as well, although he said it much more politically than that. Dominique asks again, what would the best way to have one-way access between VLANs? For example, you have main VLAN, blah, blah, blah. For one-way access between VLANs, personally for me, I would use an edge router for that, because then you can have really good granular control over the rules and what direction traffic is going which way. Any thoughts on the new UBNS platform? I don't know what that is. I have not seen that. So Brandon is a WISP operator, and that's why I haven't heard of it. I don't run a WISP. Brandon does. It has its place, and as a WIP operator, I do not use it. Okay, Colt says, hi, Chris. Hi, Colt. All right, so Winston, whenever I connect my Rocket M2 access point, after several minutes, I'm still connected, but stop receiving data until I reconnect. Yeah, interesting problem. When I have weird stuff like that, I typically just factory reset and then start over. And if it's still a problem after you factory reset and start over, then it's probably a bad unit or something. Also, make sure you update to the latest firmware, always. Ganesh, hello, love from Nepal. Thank you, love from the U.S., Ganesh. Carter says, hey. Hey, Carter. Irfan, hello from Pakistan. Hello, Irfan, from the U.S. Welcome. Thoughts about the removal of 24-volt passive from the Ubiquity switches? I love it. I think they should not have gone with a weird proprietary powering scheme. I think that everything should be standards-based, and I love the fact that the new access points, even the lights, are shipping with 802.3 AF capability. I love it. Okay, so my link did go out. It looks like that's good. Can you do an episode of dedicated to point-to-point VPN on UniFi? Yeah, I could. I've thought about doing that many times. The problem is having multiple UniFi devices that I can do a point-to-point link on. And then, of course, just setting it up and working on it and all that. I can do that, yes. I would like to do that at some point. So thank you, Kyle, and welcome. Okay. Hector, it sure does allow you to do so. Not sure what you're referring to there, but I will move on. Hugo says, what do you use to charge the DC input from a battery to the solar panel and vice versa to power the nanobeam? So basically the way that we have it is, so we have solar panel connected directly to this charge controller, Okay, this one right here. And then the charge controller goes out to a battery, and then it goes from USB out to the Air Gateway installer. The Air Gateway installer is then powered on with PoE, and then we plug in the UniFi device into the installer. Okay, so have you heard of any issues with edge router PoE router overheating? I have heard of issues of that. I have not experienced it myself. I've deployed a number of edge router PoEs in the past, but I have never heard of I have never personally had one overheat, though I have heard that that is a problem. Make sure you have backups, guys. Always have backups of your stuff. Anytime you make a configuration change to any of your devices, make a backup. Can you do free PBX deciphering CDR reports? That's a tough video. That's a tough video. CDR reports in free PBX are not ideal. Okay, they have additional software packages that they want you to buy that make deciphering CDR reports a lot easier. And I typically just recommend to my customers that they pay the 99 bucks or whatever for the modules that make that a lot easier. How can I configure the MikroTik router for it to work with my Rocket access point and require username and password to log in? I don't know. I don't know. I don't work with MikroTik that often, and that's a question that's way too big for me to answer in the 5 minutes that I have left on this live stream. So sorry, Winston. We'll have to get to that another time. Let's see. I've had one get pretty hot, so that's referring to the PoE, I'm sure. How did you calculate the size of the battery you needed? At first glance, the battery looked oversized for the panel that you had. Maybe we just used a standard 12-volt battery. It may be overpowered. In fact, we ran the NanoStation off the battery all night, and the power went down about 10%. So we're still doing testing. Maybe we will eventually get into a smaller battery, but when you get into the nuances of the price differences, the battery that we bought versus a smaller battery isn't going to be that much less expensive. So I'd rather just go for the regular 12-volt standard size battery and just make sure that we have enough power. In fact, I have one right here, and it's not a very big battery. Oh, it's heavy as heck, but it's not very big. So this is the battery right here, right? So it's not too humongous. It fits in a regular battery box. It's about 8 inches by 5 inches, and about another probably 8 inches tall. So there you go. Okay, and how did we size it? We mostly just guessed. Okay, so Chris, how did you like the UBNT phone that you got? Watched the video on it, but how do you like it these days? William, you can contact me offline about that. I'm not going to speak publicly about the UBNT phones right now anyways. Okay, so, we have a spammer. Let's see, report. Goodbye. Okay, so let's see. Chris, you ever do a video series on configuring PBX in plain vanilla asterisk? Probably not. No, because why would you do that when free PBX is so awesome? Okay, I just tried to close your browser thinking it was mine. It was blocking the video. Sorry about that. Okay, see. I meant how do you switch the battery in the solar panel for input power to the nano beam? The charge controller handles all of that, Hugo. Hello, just looking for how any of the many open VPN services along with UniFi USG. I would use private internet access, and Willie Howe has a video on how to set that up. Sorry guys, I'm busting through these questions because I've got to go, and I want to make sure I get everything answered as much as possible. Yes, we have a spammer. Yes, we do. I already took care of him. Do you suggest that PoE switch from monoprice? Do you still suggest that PoE switch from monoprice? I still use it. It's sitting right here, plugged in under my desk. I use it almost every single day, and it works great. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. I paid 40 bucks for it, 60 bucks for it, something like that. And it's got 4 ports of 802.3 AF. I use it for powering phones, and I use it literally every single day. It works great. Have you made a video where you isolate UBNT cameras and NVR from network so that if someone plugs in their computer, the camera's Ethernet, they can't access your network, but you can access NVR normally? I haven't made a video on that, but I have set that up for people. Have you experienced total reset in Ubiquiti devices due to power spikes? Yes, I have. In fact, I just did a video on that a few weeks ago called Edge Router Recovery. And if you go watch that video, you'll see not only that I did have that problem, but I show you how to recover the edge router when you do have that problem. Yes, I did almost, I did almost curse there. Heavy as heck. Okay, so Do you still have rack studs around? I do. I've got a whole bunch of them. But I don't know if I'm going to do any more rack studs giveaways because I did that rack studs giveaway on the live stream. And the two people that won them, one was in Canada, one was in Germany. It cost me $38 to send rack studs around the world. So I did send them, but I probably won't do that again because that was a lot of money for sending, 10 rack studs to people. Let's see. You could make Brandon a mod of your chat so you don't have to worry about spam. Listen, Brandon's got enough to do. I don't need to bother him with moderating chats. And we're all adults here. We can take a little, kissy face chats from time to time. And I try to, delete them as soon as I can. People need to stop asking for free IT from you. Time to pay people. Here, here. I agree. Oh, hey, Tom's here. Hey, Tom. How's it going, man? Hello. How are you doing? Okay, guys. Well, we got 147 people watching, and I normally would stick around and keep answering your questions as long as I could. But unfortunately, this is all the time that I have. I have a scheduled appointment. I got someone that I have to call right now. I'm actually now running late. So, listen, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to be trying to do these live streams on a regular schedule, and that regular schedule is every other Friday. Okay, so the next live stream will likely be the 11th of August. So if you guys sort of put that in your mental calendar, if you guys want to join that live stream, otherwise make sure you follow my Twitter at Crosstalk SOL, Crosstalk Solutions minus the Oceans, and I try to announce these live streams before I do them on Twitter. So if you want to be updated, you want to receive the news on that, then absolutely. Okay, guys, thank you again so much for joining. I appreciate all of you. Love to everyone in Pakistan and Netherlands and everywhere else that was mentioned. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you in the next one.